The folder they said never existed. You ever heard a lie so loud the truth sounded like a whisper? That's what they did to Allie Carter. For years they told the world she's making it up. There's no paperwork. We checked, there's nothing on file. But that was the setup, because what Allie found, what she held in her hands one summer night in 2024, wasn't just paperwork. It was a blueprint to betrayal. The night she found the box, she wasn't even looking for it. She was staying with her cousin for a week out in the desert, some dusty little town with no Wi-Fi and barely any AC. They were cleaning out the old trailer behind the house, the one that used to belong to their grandfather. Allie pulled up the wooden floorboard by accident, trying to chase a spider that had her cousin screaming. And under that panel was a fireproof box, heavy, locked, no label, just dust. They cracked it open with a crowbar and prayer. Inside, an old USB drive, a folder marked "Do Not Duplicate" in red Sharpie, a torn envelope from Child Protective Services dated 2019, and a stack of printed documents yellowed and clipped together with a rusty binder clip. Her cousin said, "I think Grandpa was keeping someone else's stuff." But Allie knew this was hers, because on the first page, her full name, government name, and the old CPS case number they used to deny ever existed. What was inside that folder? She flipped through that stack page by page. Medical forms with unexplained injuries, a psych eval marked "Do Not Share with Guardian," a court order that was signed but never filed, and a note handwritten in blue ink. If she ever comes asking, tell her this was lost in the fire. But there was no fire, just cover-up saying quiet threats. The tape. There was a mini cassette tucked between two files. Who still uses those? She had to drive 40 minutes to a pawn shop to find a recorder that could play it. When she did, it was static, then a voice, female, calm, controlled. "We can't place her back there." That's a direct violation. The uncle has a record. She named him. This case is too messy. Recommends sealed documentation and non-disclosure. Then silence. Then someone whispering, "Destroy the backup." She talks too much. The realization, that was the moment Allie Carter realized they never lost her paperwork. They buried it. They made her look unstable so nobody would believe her. They hid orders from judges. They bypassed warnings from doctors. And now she had the proof. This wasn't just a folder. It was a funeral for the lies. And when Allie picked up that USB drive, she said out loud, looking straight at her cousin, "This right here, gonna set the internet on fire." The court order that got overridden. This document wasn't tucked in the middle. It was sitting on top, bold, clean, and crystal clear. Title: Emergency Order of Removal. Do not return to primary relative. Dated February 8th, 2020. Signed by Judge L. Ramirez. Stamped and notarized. Marked: Immediate risk, psychological and physical harm, no placement permitted, with listed pending investigation. Let me say that again, no placement permitted. They were ordered not to send Allie back. The judge made it plain. It was on file. It was binding. So what happened next? They sent her back anyway. The note in the margin, written in red pen, done sloppy handwriting like someone rushed it. Override by directive. Emergency placement approved by regional admin. C. Godfrey. That name ain't random. That's Catherine Godfrey, Regional Director of Protective Services for that district from 2018 to 2021. And she's been connected before to multiple override cases where children were placed back in abusive homes despite red flags. She retired early, no explanation, took a private sector job in child behavioral consulting. They gave her a send-off party. Meanwhile, Allie Carter got sent back into the lion's den. Allie remembers that night. When they pulled up to the house, Allie said she screamed so hard her throat bled. She told the social worker, "Please, I'll sleep on the street. I'll go back to juvie. Just don't make me go in there." The worker turned to her and said, I don't have a choice. It came from up top, up top. That's how you know the game was rigged. Because when up top speaks, protocol dies. CPS internal memo attached to the override doc was a brief email thread. The subject line, media sensitivity risk, minimize paper trail. One line stood out. Given the uncle's past connections and current affiliations, it is critical that this matter be expedited quietly. Judge's order will be acknowledged but bypassed under Interim Emergency Code 447B. Bruh. Code 447B, that's only used in natural disasters. Like if a flood or fire displaces a child and there's no other home, they used a disaster clause to throw Allie back into a known abusive situation. All while the judge was thinking his order was being followed. Allie Carter wasn't failed by one person. She was failed by a chain of command that chose silence over safety and convenience over truth. The court tried to save her, but the system smothered the signal. And now, thanks to this one leaked override file, we finally see how they did it. The email leak that named names. So here's the twist. That USB drive from the fireproof box, it wasn't just scanned documents and court forms. It had a folder titled Training Confidential. Inside, a .zip file called Ali_Carter_case study_final.pptx. That's right. They turned her trauma into a PowerPoint, a full-on slide deck used to train new social workers. Let that marinate. This girl's abuse, used as a teaching tool without her knowledge, without her consent, and without even protecting her name. Slide 1. The setup. The first slide had a giant title, Managing Non-Compliant Youth, a complex case study in the bottom right corner. The logo for DHS Regional Training Conference, internal only. Allie was labeled as Subject AC, described as highly manipulative, frequent claims of ritualistic abuse patterns, known for escaping placements, creating public disruption. This wasn't education. This was gaslighting, weaponized, and presented in bullet points. Slide 5, the suggested tactics. This one sent chills. It listed suggested ways to stabilize subject AC, limit access to unmonitored internet, refrain from validating her ritual-based claims publicly, utilize short-term psych holes if disruptions continue, redirect attention to school performance, not trauma history. So basically, they knew she was telling the truth, but their policy was to treat her like she was creating drama. This ain't protection. This is institutional abuse. The emails attached that file wasn't alone. There were 3 emails attached in the USB's metadata folder, all between the years 2021 and 2022. Senders included Regional Training Director, CPS Oversight Lead, and a private contractor from a firm called New Phase Youth Services. Subject line, use of AC case in future modules. Okay to proceed? The response, she's old news now. She live streams, but it's mostly unverified. Redact names and it's fine, but they didn't redact enough. Slide 9 clearly shows a screenshot of Allie's Facebook post with her full name visible in the top corner. They didn't just use her story, they used her face. Allie's reaction. When Allie saw that, she didn't cry. She just sat still. Then she looked up and said, "They didn't just hurt me. They branded me, and she's right, because this wasn't just silencing. This was repackaging her trauma for internal consumption." The government didn't just ignore Allie Carter. They turned her pain into presentation slides. They turned her into a myth within their own system. And they did it thinking she'd never find out. But she did. And now the internet's next. The secret Zoom call they thought was encrypted. Now let's talk about that encrypted file. On that USB drive, Allie found there was one file labeled locked_discussion.mp4.eenc. Looked like nothing, corrupted, encrypted, hidden behind a password. But her cousin, Lil Tech Wizard broke it with a key from the file metadata. Inside, a 28-minute screen recording of a Zoom call, date stamp, April 2nd, 2023, filer name ID, weekly regional review. But this wasn't no normal meeting. This was a strategy session on how to deal with Ali Carter. Who was on the call? Catherine Godfrey, the same one who overrode the court order. T. Winslow, the placement director we just exposed. Marla Eckert, listed as PR oversight consultant. Each had their video off. Audio only, paranoid style. The screen showed a PowerPoint titled Public Disruption, Case AC, Mitigation Protocol. And right there on slide 2, a screenshot of Ali's Instagram live from a week earlier with the caption, "They tried to erase me. I'm still here." What did they say? Here's a direct transcript from the call, Godfrey. "We need to escalate. The last 2 live streams had over 100,000 combined views." Winslow, "We flagged the clips, but TikTok restored them. She's using the adoption angle now. It's resonating." Eckert, "I suggest a coordinated effort to frame her as unstable. Resurface her juvenile record. She's got enough in her file to justify a mental health red flag." Godfrey, "Can we push that through HHS or do we need an outside contractor?" Winslow, "There's still someone at New Phase. He's done this before. The strategy. Psych narrative. Slide 5 of the PowerPoint. Title, Psych narrative rollout. Tier 1 response. Bullet points. Leaked documentation suggesting instability. Have third-party influencers question her story. Flag her videos for harmful disinformation. Submit anonymous reports to get her banned from live stream platforms. This wasn't damage control. This was a reputation assassination. They were trying to erase her story while calling it protocol." Ali's reaction. When Ali saw that video, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She laughed. Then she said, "So I'm a threat now? Then I'm finally doing something right." The system didn't just fail Ali Carter. It turned into a machine built to erase her. They got on Zoom calls, behind black screens, planning her digital funeral, one shadow ban at a time. But the encrypted file made it out. And now, so will the truth. The parent log that proves they lied. There's one thing most folks don't realize. When a kid is in CPS custody, every phone call, email, voicemail, and text between the system and the guardian is logged into something called the parent communication record. But Ali Carter's was accidentally deleted. At least that's what they told her stepmom. But guess what Ali found on that USB? A folder labeled Parent Log Backup 2020 to 2021 inside. Audio files, typed transcripts, even text message screenshots. It wasn't deleted. It was hidden. Let's start with the voicemails. The first audio clip, a message to her stepmom dated March 3rd, 2021, just 4 days after Ali disappeared. Transcript. "Hi, this is LaToya from CPS Central Office. Just a quick update on AC. She's safe and in a holding facility while we finalize placement. No need for concern. We will follow up by Monday." Problem is, Ali wasn't safe. She wasn't in no holding facility. She was on the run, sleeping in unlocked cars, begging strangers for Wi-Fi to post her warnings. The check-in lies. There were 5 emails marked monthly Guardian updates. Each one said, "Youth is stable. No major incidents to report. Continues with therapeutic services." But those dates, Ali was not even in custody. She had already run. They sent those reports to keep her stepmom calm while they scrambled behind the scenes. Internal notes revealed the truth. Each update file had a hidden comment thread, only visible if you enabled metadata view. One line from a CPS supervisor said, "Log false update. Keep stepmom off our neck until we locate AC or close file." They knew she was missing. They lied to cover their failure. And they used templated language to make it sound like everything was fine. The text that never reached Ali. Here's the next part that's wild. In one thread from July 2021, her stepmom sends a desperate message. Please tell Allie I love her. I'm not mad. I just want to know she's okay. The response from CPS: we'll pass it along, but no message ever made it to Allie. Because in the internal memo, 2 lines later, no communication advised. Subject may weaponize contact for social media visibility. So love from her own family, blocked, because it didn't fit the unstable runaway narrative they were pushing. Allie's stepmom speaks out. In a live interview 6 months later, her stepmom said, I stopped believing them when I realized every answer they gave was just vague comfort. They never gave details. They never let me speak to her directly. Now I know why the parent log wasn't just a record, it was a scripted illusion.
Go through this. I got a few notes. We took a minute after New Mexico, talked to a few angels. We brought them to the hole that we found, okay? And we tried to do it again with the sound because the sound was wonky, right? We called a few angels, about 50 of them, and about 35 of them showed up. We
_evil_final_audio.m4a. It looked like just another case file. But when Allie pressed play, she heard her own voice, shaky, emotional, 15 years old, trying to explain a nightmare, and across from her, Dr. Kendra Owens, a contracted forensic psychologist. This was the official psych evaluation order before Allie's placement review in 2021. But the twist, it wasn't just the interview. This file included an extra 7-minute section that wasn't supposed to be saved. It was a side conversation, unedited, unfiltered, and what Dr. Owens said will haunt you. The session begins. You can hear Allie crying softly. She's describing the tunnel. She says, there were candles and cameras and people in masks. I remember music like chanting. Dr. Owens stays calm, asks, and were you able to identify any of the adults present? Allie whispers, one of them had a tattoo. I remember it. It looked like a serpent biting its tail. The doctor pauses, then says, that symbol is called an Ouroboros. So clearly, this wasn't her first time hearing that description. The switch up. But here's where it gets dirty. Fast forward to the final written report. Dr. Owens labeled Allie as suffering from delusional trauma cycles, unreliable narrator due to unresolved grief and detachment disorder. No verifiable evidence for claims of ritualistic abuse. But in the audio, that off-the-record part, she's speaking to someone in the room after Allie leaves, and she says this, honestly, I believe her. Too many kids have said similar things, but if I write that down, we'd both be in danger. So I have to flag it for delusion, just to protect the file. She continues, I'm not proud of it, but I know how this system works. If I put credible in that report, it'll get shredded before it's printed. A system that punishes belief. That file ain't just tragic, it's proof. Proof that the truth is being documented, then buried. Proof that even the professionals who know better are too scared to speak up. And Allie, she trusted that evaluator. She thought she was finally being heard, but instead she got labeled as broken. Allie's reaction. When she heard that 7-minute clip, she didn't even flinch. She just said, so I was right. Even when I was wrong on paper, I was right in her heart. Too bad hearts don't sign placement forms. This wasn't just betrayal. This was institutional gaslighting with a degree. The evaluator knew. She knew, but she still pushed that pen, still filed Allie under unstable, still helped them keep the cage locked. And that's how systems maintain power. Not with fists, but with silence. The court transcript, they tried to erase. Now imagine this, you're 14. You finally got a lawyer who believes in your story, and the one chance you get to speak truth in front of a judge, the mic gets cut, mid-sentence. That's exactly what happened in Allie Carter's sealed juvenile court hearing. And the redacted transcript, that's the file they never thought would see light. File name, Case 21J, V145, transcript redacted, .pdf, originally sealed under Family Court privacy protections. But a clean version was stored in a backup folder, likely for training purposes. Here's how it played out. The moment of truth. Public defender, Ms. Raines. Your Honor, my client has information suggesting that her experiences in state care, particularly involving what she describes as organized abuse, were not isolated. Judge Harriman. Counselor, I will remind you this is a placement review hearing, not a forum for conspiratorial accusations. Ms. Raines. With all due respect, Your Honor, my client has named 3 staff members at the Safe Hills facility, described physical markings consistent with ritualistic trauma, and has shown signs of PTSD confirmed by an outside evaluator. Judge Harriman. This line of discussion is now barred. Clerk, strike that from the record. Allie tries to speak. The next line is Allie herself. Allie Carter. They wore masks. They lit candles and told me I'd disappear if I told. Judge Harriman. Miss Carter, you are out of order. If you speak again without permission, you will be removed from the hearing. She tried again. They filmed us. One girl never came back. Her name was she. Transcript cuts off. Next line. Juvenile removed from courtroom for disruption. They dragged her out mid-sentence, right when she was about to name another victim. Who was in the room? According to the file's header, present were Judge Harriman, a CPS Regional Legal Counsel, Ms. Raines, Public Defender, Allie Carter, 2 unidentified plainclothes observers. IDs redacted. Now ask yourself, who were those 2 unnamed suits in a juvenile court? What were they doing there? And why did the judge obey CPS legal counsel's objections, like they ran the courtroom? The side note that exposes everything tucked in the margin. From a clerk's internal comment, audio transcript was edited per directive. Original file unavailable due to technical loss. Another lie. The full audio was stored on the USB. And Allie had it all. This court transcript proves it wasn't just CPS. It was the entire chain, from social workers to evaluators to judges, all following an unwritten script: silence her, shame her, shut it down. But Allie ain't stay silent. She remembered every word, even the ones they cut. The safe house fire that never made the news. We done talked about tunnels, about CPS lies, about silenced courtrooms. But now we about to hit something they couldn't sweep with red tape. They tried to bury it in ashes. This is the part of Allie Carter's story that connects the pain to a cover-up with fire. The safe house, Northlight Haven. It wasn't a shelter you could Google. Northlight Haven was a transitional home on the outskirts of Sacramento, a place where girls, aged 13 to 17, were sent after being pulled from abusive foster situations. Allie was there in 2021 for exactly 19 days. And during that short stay, she met a girl named Yasmin. Yasmin's story. Yasmin wasn't like the others. She was quiet, sure, but she always kept a backpack close. One night, Allie asked what was in it. Yasmin whispered, "Files. From the inside, my sister sent them before she disappeared." Allie didn't believe her at first, until Yasmin pulled out a folder. Inside, intake reports, pictures of girls that had run away. A page labeled Redline Clients. Allie told her, "You need to hide that better. They'll come looking." Yasmin replied, "I'm not hiding. I'm escaping next week." The fire 1 week later at 3:47 a.m. Allie said she woke up to thick smoke. The alarm was blaring, staff yelling, girls coughing. She grabbed her hoodie and ran outside barefoot. Flames were pouring from the side of the house, Yasmin's room. Allie kept screaming, "Where's Yasmin? Where's Yasmin?" But no one answered. By the time the fire trucks showed up, it was too late. The official report. Allie later tried to find the fire report, but there was no public record of a blaze at that address, not for that date. Not for that building. Nothing. But when she accessed the backup folder on her USB, there it was. Incident report 41321 unregistered .pdf unofficial header. Filed by a whistleblower staff member only listed as T. Jules. The report says, fire started in room 4, Yasmin's. Alleged cause, faulty socket, no investigation followed. Yasmin listed as runaway not found. Internal note, do not report to media, insurance invalid due to zoning issue. So instead of reporting a missing teen in a fire, they filed her as a runaway and acted like the house never existed, Allie's nightmare. Allie said for weeks after she had the same dream. Yasmin screaming, but no one turning around, me trying to run back inside, but my legs won't move, the folder she carried burning in slow motion. To this day, Yasmin's name has never been entered in any missing person database. She was never listed, never searched for, never mentioned again, except by Allie. That fire was more than a tragedy. It was a message. If you gather proof, if you try to leave, if you try to tell, then you might just go up in smoke. But Yasmin's story didn't die in that fire because Allie remembered. And now, so do we. The $50,000 silence payment. So look, you remember how Allie said there was a female staff member at one of the group homes who tried to help her, treated her like a person, slipped her extra snacks, listened without judgment. Her name, Ms. Denna Williams, house director at Crest Haven Transitional Home. Well, Allie ain't seen her since the day she testified to CPS Regional Review. But she found something worse than a goodbye. She found the payment. It was hidden in the health folder. On that USB, there was a folder called Medical_Comp Adjustments 2022. Looked like hospital billing files at first glance, but buried in the PDFs was one titled Post-Placement Mental Health Expense Log.xlsx. Allie opened it. First line, client, A. Carter, service, post-settlement trauma therapy. Billed to Foster Care Admin Fund, Division 7, amount $50,000 paid. To D. Williams, licensed counselor. Pause. Ms. Denna was not Allie's therapist. She wasn't a counselor. She was the house director with no clinical license. So why was she getting 50 racks under Allie's name for therapy Allie never received? Allie starts digging. She looked up the address listed on the form. It wasn't a clinic. It was a P.O. box registered to a company called Resilient Pathways, LLC. Guess who the sole proprietor was? Denna Williams. Now let's be real. You ever heard of a staff member leaving a job, getting $50,000, and that payment showing up under a child's mental health expense log? That's not therapy. That's a payoff. Whistleblower notes confirm it. One more file. email_thread_internal_comms_April to 2022.pdf internal exchange between CPS finance staff. Agent 1. Should we flag the Carter reimbursement? Looks large. Supervisor already cleared by risk. Ms. Williams agreed to NDA. Let it go. Boom. There it is. The system paid her off and slapped it on Allie's record like she got some luxury mental health package, all while Allie was in a shelter, talking to a wall because no therapist would see her. Denna disappears. After that date, Denna's LinkedIn vanished. Her name scrubbed from the Crest Haven website, but the payment trail remains stamped, logged, and buried under false services until Allie found it. This ain't just embezzlement. This is hush money disguised as healing. They laundered silence through the name of a girl who was still crying herself to sleep, all to keep one woman from testifying about what she saw. And they would have gotten away with it if Allie hadn't pulled the receipts.
Hot dogs and pizza was for who? Trafficking over the border was for who? Child Protective Services is your supplier. Is anybody going to talk about that? The immigrants that are coming across the border, that all those kids that they were just scooping up out of boats and out of the water, they're now coming in and they're throwing them right into the
The timestamp, March the 7th, 2021, 10:13 a.m. Her first day entering the Safe Hills Juvenile Center. It was meant to be a basic intake video. Staff asked the kid questions. They recorded for liability. But this one showed more than they meant to. The setup Ollie sits in a chair. She's wearing a hoodie, hands fidgeting in her lap. A female staff member, labeled Intake Tech number 42, sits across from her. They go through basic questions. Any allergies? Any history of violence? Have you ever attempted to harm yourself? Then comes the twist. Intake Tech. Have you ever made up stories to get attention? Allie looks up. What? Intake Tech. Pressing. You ever told a big lie, maybe something unbelievable, to manipulate adults? Gaslighting in real time. Allie leans back, visibly confused. No, I mean, people don't believe me anyway. Intake Tech. Right. Sometimes trauma can make kids imagine things that didn't happen, though. Would you agree? You can hear the trap closing. They weren't interviewing her. They were building the lie early, planting seeds of doubt on camera. The mirror. Now here's the part. Behind the intake tech, on the left side of the wall, there's a full rectangular mirror. At first, it just shows part of the tech's back, but as the camera shifts slightly, you see another figure. Standing just outside the door, a man, bald, thick glasses, dressed in all black. He's not listed anywhere in the footage log. He doesn't speak, doesn't enter. He just stands there, watching. And when Allie answers questions about rituals and the basement, you see him take notes in a notebook. Who was he? There's no mention of a supervisor on the intake sheet, no third party logged. But in the reflection, he's clear as day. Allie paused the footage and said, "That's the man I saw in the basement 2 months later. He don't talk, but he's always watching the end of the clip. As the video wraps up, the tech smiles and says, 'You're safe now, okay?' But right before the fade out, the mirror catches one last thing. The man turns, walks away from the door, and on his neck, a small tattoo, the Ouroboros, same serpent Allie described months ago. This video wasn't just a mistake. It was a window into the setup. They gaslit her on tape while the watchers stood silent just outside the frame. But the truth, it reflects. Even in the corners, they forget to blur. Project Amberlight, the burn notice. This ain't no street rumor. This is a corporate-style cover-up with code names, deletion orders, and insider lingo. We talking about a classified operation buried so deep inside CPS records. They gave it a code. Project Amberlight. The file, Parent Directive Final, NDA Memo, V4 Docs. It was tucked inside a folder labeled Archive Admin Burns, which at first glance looked like a bunch of outdated policy memos. But one file had no metadata, no author tag, no revision history, just this heading at the top, Interdepartmental Memorandum issued August 2nd, 2021. Subject: immediate redaction and data wipe. Amberlight. The directive. Here's what the memo said, word for word. Effective immediately, all field agents, regional supervisors, and contracted third-party coordinators are to cease all references, verbal or written, to Project Amberlight. Any documents, email threads, or media referencing said project must be removed from internal and external platforms, cloud storage, or shared drives. No backups are permitted. Non-compliance will result in termination. Then this line. This initiative was never formally acknowledged, and future inquiries will be treated as breaches of confidentiality protocol. Ollie's reaction? When she found this file on her USB, she whispered, "They tried to wipe the whole thing like it never existed. But I lived it. So what was Project Amberlight? Allie don't know everything. But she pieced together fragments from other files. Amberlight had recruitment centers. It was tied to behavioral adjustment programs for non-compliant youth. Girls were flagged for transfer based on private psych evals and peer reports. Transfers didn't require parental approval if the child was deemed at risk of manipulation. One line from a support doc said, Amberlight candidates show elevated intelligence and resistance to socialization. They often suffer from memory dissonance after reintegration. Memory dissonance? They were testing on these kids, breaking them down, rebuilding them. Like Ali said, they tried to erase my soul and rewire it. Who ordered the burn? The memo was signed only with initials, JRH, but cross-referencing that with a separate file. Ali found a regional manager ID badge PDF for Jared R. Hensley, Northern District Youth Operations, Sacramento. That's the man who approved Ali's transfer to Northlight Haven, the house that later burned down with Yasmin inside. He was also copied on an email thread titled Amberlight Pre-Transfer Report. Subject, A. Carter. That's right. They flagged Ali. She wasn't just in the system. She was the target of a secret one. They tried to erase it all. The name, the files, the people. But the burn notice slipped through, and that one digital scar proves everything. Ali was never paranoid. She was processed, labeled, selected, and she's not the only one. The quiet room confession. This ain't no metaphor. There was a real room with real doors, no windows, and no clocks. Ali called it the cage with padding. But staff, they had a code name for it, quiet room. And today, we got a former nurse's anonymous confession explaining exactly what happened behind that door. The file, nurse, confession, overlay.mp4. Ali found this video buried inside a strange folder labeled Ice Cube Do Not Open. It was a screen recording. A nurse talking into her laptop camera. Her voice warped, face blurred out using cheap filters. But her words, crystal clear. The confession, I worked at Ridge Valley Youth Care from 2019 to 2022. I was the night shift nurse assigned to med rounds. I didn't see everything, but I saw enough. I saw what happened in the quiet room. The quiet room wasn't about calming kids down. It was about breaking them. They weren't just restrained. They were left in complete silence for hours, sometimes overnight. There was no audio surveillance in that room, only motion detection. They said it was for liability reasons, but it was so they could do things that wouldn't be recorded. Sometimes they take girls in there for attitude correction, but it wasn't therapy. It was more like programming, flashing lights, low tones, and a small intercom that would repeat phrases like, "You're safe now. You were dreaming. None of that happened." She literally described gaslighting on repeat like a broken record fed into these girls' minds. Now guess what Ali said back in part 2? They put me in that box and played that same voice until I stopped screaming and started doubting myself. Medical records match. The nurse even showed one redacted document, a log entry from February 13th, 2021. Patient ID 45301, AC entered quiet room, 2:07 a.m. released, 7:42 a.m. notes, refused meds, screamed about being watched in her sleep, no visible bruising. Outcome, receptive to suggestion post-isolation. Receptive to suggestion, huh? Translation, we broke her down just enough to keep her quiet. The nurse ends with guilt. I wanted to report it. I thought about going to the press, but when I did bring it up to my supervisor, I got moved to the front desk, and a week later, my contract got restructured. But Ali, if you ever see this, I believe you. And I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. That ain't just a confession, that's a receipt. One of the people who worked the system admitted what went on behind the walls. And now, we know the truth. The quiet room wasn't just a place to calm down, it was a place to erase memory, to implant obedience, to kill the spirit quietly one kid at a time. But Allie Carter ain't quiet anymore. She remember every second, and now the world hears her too. The digital blackout, how they erase Allie online. Now, you ever try Googling something and it just feels like nothing shows up that should? Like there's a hole where the truth should be? That's not by accident. That's a blacklist. And Allie Carter found hers. The file safe hills _ search suppression .txne. It was a plain notepad file, just text, no dates, no owner name, no metadata. But it read like a kill list for truth. Inside, over 300 flagged keywords marked for visibility downgrade. At the top of that list, Allie Carter A. Carter, Case 21J, V145, Safe Hills, Group Home, Abuse Project, Amberlight MK Ultra C, PS Experiment, California Foster Ritual Lawsuit. And beside each one was a status line: suppression, true index, blocked external search, false autofill, disabled Allie. Put it to the test. After reading that list, Allie ran a real-time search using different public search engines. She searched Safe Hills Group Home Abuse. No results past page 1. CPS Ritual Case Sacramento redirected to generic CPS info. Allie Carter, Safe Hills testimony, no matches found. But when she used a VPN from outside the U.S., boom, foreign news blogs, old forum posts, leaked emails, they all appeared. The U.S. search portals were intentionally filtering the results. The smoking gun Allie ran a reverse lookup on the IP address listed in the notepad file's comment line. Source server 29.77.81.12. Internal filter, proxy, DHS Youth Oversight Task Node. Yeah, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. There's no reason their servers should be tied to CPS search traffic, unless this went deeper than child protection, shadow banning in government systems. And it ain't just Google. She tested Pacer, no public record of her juvenile hearing, California court access, case not found, foster care admin portal, her name produces insufficient privileges error, yet she found her case ID in internal PDF logs. So how can a case exist in documents but vanish from every public portal? You already know the answer. They pulled the digital plug. This ain't a theory. This is evidence of a system-wide scrub. Keyword suppression, search bans, access blocks, all tied to the same girl. The same voice they tried to silence. But Allie ain't going nowhere. She found her name on the kill switch list. And instead of disappearing, she printed it out, framed it, and now she shouts over the silence. The girls who vanished, closed without placement. Allie always said there were others. I wasn't the only one. They used to call us the Ghost Girls. And now, she got the files to back it up. The folder, safehills _int _redacted -archive, deep in the USB drive, in a subfolder labeled Legacy, she found a series of redacted PDFs, each file titled SAP001, SAP002, SIAPA003, all the way to SIAHAM006, each one stamped with the same haunting status, closed without placement. What that means now in foster care when a case is labeled closed without placement, it usually means one of three things. 1. The child was transferred out of state. 2. The child turned 18 and aged out. 3. The child died in custody. But here's the thing, none of those reasons were listed in these files. No transfer forms, no release signatures, no death certificates, just black bars, pages and pages of black bars. The 6 names, Allie had kept a list in her journal of the girls she remembered. Yasmin, we already know her fate. Layla R. Michaela J. Z, real name unknown. Sunflower, nickname only. Bailey, no last name ever given. The CWP files matched on exact initials and dates. One doc showed a MJ whose file was frozen after April 2021. That's the month Allie said Michaela disappeared from their room. Another file referenced ZR and a behavior log entry that read, subject refused to eat after isolation room incident. Final notation marked, no further updates required. No further updates? That girl never came back. Digital disappearance. Ali searched online. No missing persons reports, no social posts, no family interviews. Even when she looked for obituaries, nothing. She said, it's like they never had birth certificates. Like ghosts in a system that eats its young, one surviving entry, only one file, CWP006, had an extra note at the bottom. A scribbled line, clearly handwritten and later scanned. Subject reassigned to Amberlight Hold. Expedited. Hold override approved by JRH. JRH again, Jared R. Hensley, the same dude behind Ali's freeze memo, the same initials from the Amberlight burn notice. This proves they didn't lose track of these girls. They rerouted them, vanished them, scrubbed them, 6 girls, no homes, no exits, no records, only redacted files and Ali's memory. But she remembers each one of their faces, the way they held hands during lights out, the way they hummed gospel songs when the quiet room got too loud, the way they tried to protect each other from staff who called them property.
Literally what's going on in an auction. For children, for 6-year-olds, for 7-year-olds. They walk into an auction and they will say, like, I will buy for a test sample of 2 fingers. I will buy for a test sample of a full hand. And they literally get to walk up to a 6-year-old and shove their hand up their
iPhone. But the backup, that one lucky Google Drive sync saved it, a 43-second voice message from someone she used to trust, her old social worker. Who was it? Her name ain't in the file, but Ali knew the voice. Miss Daniel R., the last worker assigned to Ali before everything went dark in 2021. Back then, Danielle acted like she wanted to help, tried to get Ali moved, said she was going to file a formal abuse report. But then she ghosted, didn't show up to court, didn't return texts. Ali thought she gave up. Turns out, she got scared. The transcribed voicemail. Ali, hey, I don't have long to talk, I'm sorry. I know I told you I'd show up. I know I told you I'd file a report. I tried. I swear I tried, voice cracking. But after I submitted the first form, my manager told me I'd been reassigned. Then ID wiped my desktop the next morning. They locked me out of my own files. They said I breached internal protocol. But all I did was tell the truth. Brief silence. Ali, they're watching me now, too. My phone, my emails. My husband even said he saw someone outside the house. If you go public, please be careful. Please don't use my name. They erase people, breathing. I'm sorry I failed you. I really tried. I did click. Ali's reaction? She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just hit play again, over and over and over. Then she uploaded it to an encrypted folder and wrote, she was scared and I get it. But if they erase me too, this needs to survive. The implications. Let's be clear. That voicemail confirms internal reports were filed. Staff were punished for speaking up. Surveillance extended beyond the workplace. And Ali wasn't paranoid. She was abandoned out of fear. This ain't about one rogue group home. This is a machine with gears that grind up truth tellers right alongside the kids. Even when the good ones try to speak, they get reassigned, silenced, shadowed, but that voicemail slipped through. And now the world can hear it, a voice trembling in the dark, saying what we all feel deep down. They erase people. The Weekend Doctor, MK Ultra, never ended. Ali Carter always said there was this one staff member. We'll call him Dr. Blaine. Always wore gloves. Didn't talk much. Only worked Friday nights to Monday mornings. But Ali remembered something weird. He wasn't listed on our staff board. He didn't wear a badge. But every time a girl got out the quiet room screaming, he was the one walking them out, whispering, and now we know why. The breakthrough file, Northlight _employee _ alt roster.xls. Allie cracked open a hidden Excel doc labeled alt roster Northlight 3B. It listed names of contract employees who worked under Safe Hill's third-party program partnerships. Right there in row 12, name, Dr. Stephen B. Lang, position weekend behavioral oversight, payee company, Lumen Path Medical Research, classification, behavioral response observation / induce trauma. Let me pause. Induce trauma. That ain't counseling, that ain't therapy, that's experimentation. Who is Lumen Path Medical? Allie dug deeper. Lumen Path isn't listed as a foster care partner. They do have DoD grants listed from 2009 to 2017. One grant title, Neuroadaptive Conditioning in Adolescent Subjects. Another, Cognitive Compartmentalization Protocol, Youth Variant. She found one archived webpage, Thank You Wayback Machine, that described Lumen Path as a continuation of Project Ashfield. Now, what's Project Ashfield? That was the quiet rebrand of MKUltra programs in the 90s, under private contracts outside the public eye. Testimonies from other girls. Allie remembered how, after Dr. Blaine showed up, girls would act different. They'd forget conversations from the night before. One girl, Michaela, couldn't even remember what year it was after treatment. They called it the forgetting room, just a plain white room, no sounds, no light, nothing but a hum. And that man whispering things they couldn't remember afterward. Memory wipe trials. Allie later found a chilling doc in the same folder. Lumen Path, trial notes tosh raw.txt. It read, Subject 4B shows high resistance to suggestion. Though initial fear response is optimal, follow-up dosage resulted in increased docility and memory erosion in short-term recall. Testing approved to proceed through Q3. These weren't healing protocols. These were Pavlovian rewiring blueprints, and Allie remembered being in that room. Note once, 3 times. She said, that man had a voice like syrup and ice at the same time. He never touched me, but he changed me. The funding trail. Get this, the same Excel doc listed a $68,000 wire transfer from a foundation called the Benton Ethical Advancement Trust. Want to guess who's on their board? 2 retired CIA advisors, a former military psychologist, and a youth trauma researcher named, wait for it, Dr. Henry Eastwell. He used to work at Langley in the 70s. And now he's studying dissociative youth behavior. This ain't conspiracy talk no more. This ain't wild theories on Twitter or Reddit. This is a receipt trail that leads from a group home for troubled girls to a government-funded, trauma-inducing memory wipe experiment designed to break minds before they even fully formed. Allie Carter lived through that. And every time they tried to erase her, she remembered just enough to expose them. They wanted her to forget. But now we remember. The Weekend Doctor, MKUltra, never ended. Allie Carter always said there was this one staff member. We'll call him Dr. Blaine. Always wore gloves. Didn't talk much. Only worked Friday nights to Monday mornings. But Allie remembered something weird. He wasn't listed on our staff board. He didn't wear a badge, but every time a girl got out the quiet room screaming, he was the one walking them out, whispering, and now we know why. The breakthrough file, Northlight _employee _ alt roster.xls. Allie cracked open a hidden Excel doc labeled alt roster Northlight 3B. It listed names of contract employees who worked under Safe Hill's third-party program partnerships. Right there in row 12, name, Dr. Stephen B. Lang. Position, weekend behavioral oversight. Payee company, Lumen Path Medical Research. Classification, behavioral response observation / induce trauma. Let me pause. Induce trauma. That ain't counseling, that ain't therapy, that's experimentation. Who is Lumenpath Medical? Allie dug deeper. Lumenpath isn't listed as a foster care partner. They do have DoD grants listed from 2009 to 2017. One grant titled Neuroadaptive Conditioning in Adolescent Subjects. Another, Cognitive Compartmentalization Protocol, Youth Variant. She found one archived webpage, Thank You Wayback Machine, that described Lumenpath as a continuation of Project Ashfield. Now, what's Project Ashfield? That was the quiet rebrand of MK Ultra programs in the 90s under private contracts outside the public eye. Testimonies from other girls' ally remembered how after Dr. Blaine showed up, girls would act different. They'd forget conversations from the night before. One girl, Michaela, couldn't even remember what year it was after treatment. They called it the forgetting room, just a plain white room. No sounds, no light, nothing but a hum, and that man whispering things they couldn't remember afterward. Memory Wipe Trials. Ali later found a chilling doc in the same folder, Lumenpath Trial Notes, raw.txt. It read, Subject 4B shows high resistance to suggestion, though initial fear response is optimal. Follow-up dosage resulted in increased docility and memory erosion in short-term recall. Testing approved to proceed through Q3. These weren't healing protocols. These were Pavlovian rewiring blueprints. And Ali remembered being in that room, not once, 3 times. She said, that man had a voice like syrup and ice at the same time. He never touched me, but he changed me. The funding trail, the same Excel doc, listed a $68,000 wire transfer from a foundation called the Benton Ethical Advancement Trust. Want to guess who's on their board? 2 retired CIA advisors, a former military psychologist, and a youth trauma researcher named, wait for it, Dr. Henry Eastwell. He used to work at Langley in the 70s, and now he's studying dissociative youth behavior. This ain't conspiracy talk no more. This ain't wild theories on Twitter or Reddit. This is a receipt trail that leads from a group home for troubled girls to a government-funded, trauma-inducing memory wipe experiment designed to break minds before they even fully formed. Allie Carter lived through that, and every time they tried to erase her, she remembered just enough to expose them. They wanted her to forget. But now we remember. The judge's secret side hustle. Allie always felt like the courtroom was rigged. Every time she stood in front of Judge Harold D. Jennings, he acted like she was the problem. Never once asked her how she was doing. Never once asked if she felt safe. Just stamped papers, moved her around like luggage, gave her new caseworkers like Band-Aids. But now we know why. The folder, jdj_private_comms.zip. Inside the USB drive from Allie's cousin's trailer was a folder titled jd_private_comms.zip encrypted. Took 3 days to crack the password. Want to know what it was? Sunflower 23. The nickname of one of the girls Allie said disappeared. Even the password was dirty. What was inside? Over 143 email threads. From a private Gmail address, hdjenkins.legalshift@gmail.com, to multiple recipients, directors at group homes, legal reps for placement centers, One Shady Real Estate, LLC, and the subject lines, Q2 placement bonus confirmed. Need to move 3 more for invoice to clear. Talk to Shapiro, PR risk on Carter Kid, weekend stay equals double credit. Let me repeat that last one. Weekend stay equals double credit. That ain't justice, that's trafficking. The kickback loop. Every time Judge Jennings signed off on a placement, he got a cut from a shell company called Safe Stream Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware. Linked to no public site, no phone number. But one internal email reads, H, your 7K wired. Appreciate the expedited placement. Let's try to fill Amberlight by next Friday. So let me get this straight. Jennings places a girl in a group home. That home invoices the state. A portion of the state payment gets routed through SafeStream, and Jennings pockets the money through consulting fees. That's organized crime. That's racketeering with a gavel. One email that blew us away from his Gmail to a private equity investor. This Carter girl won't shut up. We either move her out of circuit or she's going to blow the whole damn model. So Allie wasn't just a nuisance. She was a threat to his income. And the moment she started talking, he moved her to a locked facility with no phones, no visitors, no oversight. This man weaponized the court to silence a teenager who knew too much. The ties go deeper. Some of the recipients of those emails. A development firm that builds juvenile centers in rural areas. A psychologist who specializes in behavioral containment. A former lobbyist for the Private Child Services Association. This wasn't one crooked man. This was a network of predators in suits building empires on the backs of kids nobody thought would talk. But Allie talked. And now we listening? Judge Jennings wasn't a judge. He was a broker of bodies, trading black and brown children like assets, silencing them with medical records, psych evaluations, and locked doors. But Allie didn't break.
There are some people who are upset with us that we will not talk to them, that we will not pick up the phone because we see the point there. This is not a career choice. This was not on purpose. This was not, we don't want your money. I don't want anybody's money. I've been a dollar sign.
Purpose. And that's when she found it. A Word doc called, "To Whom It May Concern." I had to tell the truth. Docs. No author, no date, just a message. The letter. My name doesn't matter. I was a shift lead at North Light Wing B. I lasted 11 months. I left the day they told me I had to lie under oath. What I saw there was not just neglect. It was psychological torture, drugging, and I can't even write some of it. We were ordered to lie on forms, told to say kids were violent when they weren't, told to inject meds into children without their consent, told to isolate girls who spoke up, especially one named Allie. On the night of July 4th, I saw a girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, brought in through the back entrance. No intake, no ID band, no record. She was trembling, didn't speak, looked drugged. The staff called her 13, that's all, just a number. They put her in room 6A, the room with no cameras, the one they called the ghost room. 3 days later, she was gone. No transfer paperwork, no file, no trace. I asked where she went. They told me she didn't exist, and neither will you if you ask again. That was enough for Allie. Allie read that letter and started shaking. She remembered that room. She remembered hearing someone in there, one crying through the vent late at night. She said, "I thought it was my imagination, but now I know I wasn't the only one in hell." The final line of the letter. If you find this, please believe me. If I disappear, tell the truth. They are not just hurting children. They are erasing them. Who wrote it? Ali cross-referenced the letter with the 2020 employee exit list. Only one person resigned that week without giving a reason. K. Ramirez, resignation effective July 7, 2020. And just like the girl named 13, Ramirez was never mentioned again. No forwarding contact, no social media, gone. This wasn't a rant. It wasn't a conspiracy thread. It was a confession, typed, printed, hidden by someone who saw too much and chose truth over a paycheck. That's bravery. That's what Ali is fighting for, not just for herself, but for the ones who never made it out. The therapist tapes, rewriting reality. Ali always said therapy in those group homes wasn't to help. It was to shut her down, to make her doubt herself, to twist what happened so bad that she'd start thinking maybe she made it all up. But now she's got the tapes. The folder, Session Audio Secure /R6. Therapy tapes/Allie found 6 audio files, each labeled with a date, her initials, and the name Dr. Evelyn Marrow, behavioral consultant, CPS contractor. Each file was about 40 minutes long. All of them had been renamed like they were trash. Nonsense 001.mp3, audio error, TMP3, cut fragment.mp3. But inside, it was Allie's voice, and they tried to bury it. Tape number 1. What you think you saw. Dr. Marrow starts calm, soft voice. Allie, we need to talk about these stories you've been telling. Allie responds, they're not stories. They happen. Sweetheart, sometimes the brain tells us stories to protect us from pain. You ever thought maybe these things didn't really happen, and that's why no one else remembers them? You can hear Allie pause. Then why do I have nightmares every night? Why did CPS take me away? And Dr. Marrow answers, sometimes children act out to get attention. That ain't therapy. That's gaslighting in a white coat. Tape number 3. If you want to go home. This one was the worst. Dr. Marrow says, the judge is reviewing your file. If we can get you to stop talking about these conspiracies, we may be able to recommend supervised visits with your mom. Allie replies, but if I lie, it's like I'm saying they didn't do it. I'm saying if you want a future, we may need to let some things go. For your own good, that's not therapy. That's emotional blackmail. These were recorded sessions, state mandated, supposed to be used for case review. But Allie says she never saw them again after she left. And when her legal advocate requested the records in 2023, CPS said no recordings were retained or archived. Yet here they are on a flash drive from a cousin's basement, labeled as errors. The goal wasn't healing. It was control. They tried to erase her memory, twist her into silence, use therapy as a weapon. But the tapes don't lie. You can hear her fight to hold on to truth, even when every adult in the room is telling her she's crazy. And now the world can hear it too. You know what's wild? If Allie hadn't found these recordings, they'd still be calling her unstable, still be saying she's confused, she's traumatized, she's just making it up. But the audio proves otherwise. Her voice was clear, her memories sharp, her pain real from the beginning. They didn't try to fix her. They tried to rewrite her. The meds she never agreed to. Allie always said they drugged her. She ain't mean depression meds or sleep pills. She meant hard stuff, antipsychotics, tranquilizers, things that made her feel like her soul left her body. Folks didn't believe her, said she was exaggerating, until she found the logs. The file RXADMIN_history_2020_ALC.CSVA spreadsheet. Looks boring on the outside, but inside, it's a crime scene. Allie's name right at the top. DOB matches CPS ID number locked in. Under the column labeled prescription administered, risperidone 2 milligrams, daily, clonazepam 0.5 milligrams as needed, hydroxyzine 25 milligrams, nightly, chlorpromazine 50 milligrams, 3 times weekly, Zyprexa 10 milligrams, weekly injection, all classified as administered under behavioral protocol per supervisor. Discretion, no signature from Ali, no parent consent, no court order, just a green check, like it was nothing. What are these meds? Let's break it down real plain. Risperidone, antipsychotic for schizophrenia, clonazepam, anti-anxiety, sedative, addictive, hydroxyzine, antihistamine used as a cheap sedative, chlorpromazine, old-school tranquilizer used in psych wards, Zyprexa, heavy antipsychotic with black box warning for kids. And Ali, she was never diagnosed with any psych condition. They just labeled her defiant/oppositional behavior. So instead of help, they gave her chemical compliance. Who approved it? One name shows up over and over, Nurse G. Kelly, ID number 778234/facility, Northlight. But Ali's cousin ran her info through a nursing registry. No license on file, not in the state, not anywhere. Just a temp staffer on a contract. Let that sink in. Someone with no verified license was injecting drugs into a teenage girl without consent. The side effects Ali faced. She said, I wake up in a fog. Couldn't focus, couldn't write. Sometimes I forget my own name for a minute, and when she started resisting the meds, they labeled her unstable. Said she was non-compliant with treatment. Treatment for what, though? Truth-telling, a common practice. This ain't just Ali. This is a known trick in the system. Medicate to suppress behavior. Avoid paperwork for restraints. Quiet down the problem kids. But that ain't medicine. That's chemical incarceration. And Ali got the spreadsheet to prove it. They wanted her quiet. So they turned her body into a battlefield, used drugs as their bullets. But now she flipped the script. They thought the spreadsheet would get lost in the shuffle, buried in some admin hard drive. But now it's center stage, and the whole world can see. Ali didn't need pills. She needed protection.
About children being there. I knew about him the hell out of females. I knew about the parties going on with multiple people, so it wasn't just Sean Combs. I knew about all of that, but I left early, so guilty. How many people did you hear say about Cassie Ventura that I knew that she was being abused? I knew this shit was wrong.
Inside, her journal. She thought it was long gone, taken during a room search, confiscated by staff after they caught her writing too much. But it survived. And what's inside, it's a window into a soul trying to hold on. The first page, to the me who makes it out. I don't know who you are yet. I don't know if you're broken, strong, numb, or loud, but if you find this, that means you lived. You survived what they did. That means they didn't win. Entry dated August 19th, 2020. They gave me 3 pills today. I didn't want them, but when I said no, they said I was refusing treatment. I think treatment means shutting me up. I saw a girl today. I call her Ghost. She walks funny, doesn't talk. I think she saw what I saw. Entry dated October 3rd, 2020. I miss my mama. I miss her smell, her hands, her Sunday voice. The voice she used when she braided my hair. They told me she don't want me. I think they lying. I think the devil is working here. Entry dated December the 25th, 2020, Christmas Day. They gave us plastic cookies and sang songs like Nothing's Wrong. I cried in the shower. That's the only place I can pray where they can't see. Jesus, if you real, let somebody find this book. Let them know I wasn't crazy. Let them know I tried. A poem, undated. My voice is a locked box. My story is the key. Every time they say I'm lying, a piece of me bleeds free. But I'm not a victim. I'm the one who made it out the fire. So if you hear this, know I'm more than what they tried to bury. She was writing to us. Every page, every sentence was a letter to the future, to anyone strong enough to read what she lived through and say, you were right to speak up. Ali wrote, they tried to erase me. But even if I'm gone, my truth will find a way to breathe. That's what this whole thing was about, ain't it? It ain't just about exposing a broken system. It's about restoring a stolen voice. Ali didn't write for sympathy. She wrote for vindication. She wrote so some girl 5 years from now could find these pages and feel less alone. And now, the world's finally listening. Her letters didn't just survive. They started a movement.